Sudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And here's the book with the light.
Bhakti Ananda Swami ki.
So we're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 4th canto, creation of the fourth order, chapter 7, the sacrifice performed by Daksha. Text 16, Maitreya Uvacha. Kshamapya. What is this letter? Kshamapyaivamsa. Oh, I'm so blind. This doesn't help. So what I'll do, I shall... Oh yeah, that's way better. Yeah. Kshamapyaivam samidvamsam brahmana chanumantritaha karma santanayamasa sopadhyaya tvigadibihi. Maitreya uvacha kshamapyaivamsa midvamsam brahmana chanumantritaha karma santanayamasa sopadhyayartvigadibihi. Sopadhyayartvigadibihi. Would anyone like to chant? Samidvamsam brahmana chanumantritaha karma santanayamasa. Up, sopadya, up. Sopadhyaya vritadibihi. Maitreya uvacha kshamapyaivam samidvamsam brahmana chanumantritaha karma santanayamasa sopadhyaya ritvigadibhi. Ladies. Maitreya uvacha Brahmana cha numantritaha karma santanayamasa sopadhyayartvigadibihi. Maitreya, the sage Maitreya, Uvacha said, Kshama, forgiveness, Apya, receiving, Evam, thus, Saha, King Daksha, Midvamsam, unto Lord Shiva, Brahmanam, along with Lord Brahma, Cha, also, Anumantritaha, being permitted, Karma, the sacrifice, Santanayam asa, begin again, Sam, along with, Upadhyaya, learned sages, Ritvik, the priests, Adibhihi, and others. Translation. The great sage Maitreya said, thus being pardoned by Lord Shiva, King Daksha, with the permission of Lord Brahma, again began the performance of the yagya, along with the great learned sages, the priests and others. Now, I will read text 17 also, but not just now. Almost all of you were here yesterday for the Bhagavatam class, is it? Anyone here? You might not have been here yesterday. You heard it online. Okay, so we're all covered. Then I'd like to just finish a couple of things from the verse yesterday. Does anyone remember anything from yesterday? Yes. Minefield. Okay. A friend of mine is supposed to get a child, and I sent him a message. Said, "How many of you are now?" So no, we're still 2. So they didn't get a baby yet. Yes.
You explained this is also a sin, original sin.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I remember the statement that so the highest expertise is expressed in giving shortcuts.
Yeah. Was that last night or no? That was last night. You're fired. Prabhuji back there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, very well. Very well. Like we can see ourselves in Daksha, minus all of the expertise. Daksha was, the very name Daksha means that he's just an amazing expert. Yeah.
Yes, this thing was there that we have this tendency to judge very quickly without thoroughly understanding.
Very well. Which is what Daksha did, right? Like he said, "Oh, I didn't know your powers." You didn't know, and you made a conclusion, and you went on to judge him. Like, yes.
You have to see things another perspective, not only negative things.
Ah, very well. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how people choose their focus. Yeah. Yes.
We were talking about this word I don't pronounce right, duality, like these planes of our will.
Volition.
Volition, that Krishna doesn't take care of this, that we have to take care of this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's trying to work on it, but but not directly, because that's the thing that's ours. Like, that's within our own personal domain. Not even God touches that. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, perhaps?
You said that a person is definitely having an agenda who comes to a conclusion without knowing the details.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Very well. Yeah. And that's one of the primary reasons why people tend to make a judgment, pass a judgment, even they know very little about the situation or a person or like that. That's because they have an agenda. Reminded me of a seminar I gave, not the seminar, but all of the things I studied for the seminar. And then I myself was shocked how people love to be angry. How much we love to hate. Like, we can hardly wait for an opportunity to hate on someone. Like, and that's one agenda. But now it's interesting to see why someone likes to hate. That's some other time about that. Okay, we talked also about ignorance being an excuse. Okay, and then Daksha recognized, I mean, that's what he said. He said, had you not punished me, I mean, I was on the way to hell, and you kindly punished me, so now I'm not going to hell. So he was very happy about that. We could ask ourselves, why should someone go to hell for disrespecting anyone? Why should someone end up in hell by disrespecting anyone? There are two things going on here. One thing is reality and being incongruent with reality. Do you know what incongruent means? Same. Okay. So you all know this word? No, they don't know even the German word. So maybe Spanish? Yeah. Correct. And they don't match. Like when you're a child, you're given a board with different holes, and then different items can make it through these holes, and you have to find which item matches into a hole. So if something's congruent, that word C-O-N, like all C-O-N, C-O-M, like computer, community, commonwealth, congruence, confluence, they're all coming from the Sanskrit word sam, like sankirtana, which sam means to put together, and kon also means to bring together. And so when something fits together, you say it's congruent. And if it doesn't fit, it's incongruous. They just don't fit. You're at odds with the thing. There's some kind of a clash there. It just doesn't fit. So there are two things here. There's congruence, or the lack of it. In other words, incongruence with reality. And then there's the punishment. Those are the two things going on in this statement. Now, religion often tends to toss about this concept of hell. As a matter of fact, it does wonders on the religious market. Makes people want your product. Every religion has a product. When I say every religion, I mean every religious tradition has a product, and every religious tradition wants to place their product on the market, religious market. And hell is one of the great selling points. See, if you don't buy our product, you're going to hell. And then people, oh man, I better buy the product. And all you need to do is convince them that they're going to hell unless they buy your product, and then you have huge market. This is a church or a temple or mosque or religion market driven by fear. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is one of the inspirations for religion, fear, but it's not the most sophisticated one. Ultimately, what's the ultimate motivation or inspiration for religion in terms of its development, when it finally develops, where it is at? Love, not hate, not fear, it's actually love, which is just pure attraction. So hell, a very interesting concept. We have it too. And sometimes we sell our product also by referring to hell. And I mean, what's interesting, there are many statements in the Shastra, and sometimes it's difficult to say which of the statements have a absolutely literal meaning. Like, if you kill a cow, you're going to hell for as many lifetimes as there's hairs on the body of a cow. Like that. Is that a literal statement, or it just means that it's really sinful to do that? So sinful you can't even imagine it, just like you can't imagine how many hairs are there on the body of a cow. I was looking yesterday, that's why it came to me. We were walking, we saw a cow laying down. It's like, man, there's a lot of hair. Like, that's a lot of lifetimes. So why should anyone go to hell? Why would hell even exist? And does being disrespectful towards someone warranty going to hell? I mean, sometimes you have these, what's the term? Sort of technocrats, people who conceive of religion in a very mechanistic way, sort of almost like a mechanical technology, and they think that salvation is achieved by mechanical processes, and they also think that the failure is also realized by mechanical processes. So, for example, you walk down a road and you didn't want to, but somehow or other you offended someone, and off you go to hell. Now, how true that is, that's a question here to ask. We see that Srila Prabhupada broke a lot of scriptural injunctions. I mean, I'm not here to, for God's sake, didn't come this morning to tell you to break scriptural injunctions. But rather we should understand them. But Prabhupada broke a lot of them. Like really a lot. And why? Because Srila Prabhupada could tell which of the instructions is more important and what is the purpose of of an instruction. Just like if you take things out of what's the term? If you take him out of context, which is another CON word, context, where things are put together. If you take things out of context, then you may end up with a very, very bizarre conclusion. one that's quite incongruous with the reality of the situation, like that. So, yes, we are all for following scriptural injunctions, but things aren't that simple, you see. So, by first disrespecting anyone, and especially a great soul, and especially a soul such as Lord Shiva, goes against, first of all, goes against seeking truth. Because people who do that are not people who are seeking truth. Which, if you're not a truth seeker, you're already incongruous with reality. You're incongruous with the Lord, Krishna. Incongruous, yeah. Thank you. You're not incongruous with your own nature. Like in the Shastra, there's so many descriptions of our nature. And to be unwarrantedly disrespectful towards anyone is incongruous with our nature. And that's something equivalent to using a very expensive microphone to stir a soup. Sure, you can do that. But anyone sensible wouldn't. Yeah, you'll manage to stir the soup. But you will have ruined a 2,000 euros microphone. There are even more expensive microphones than 2,000 euros. So in this way we ruin ourselves by being incongruous with the truth. And one of that truth we mentioned yesterday several times is samatva. Samatva is a quality of equality. And if you look at Bhagavad Gita, samatva is a very, very important topic in the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because samatva is the foundation. It's one of the foundations. And if you don't get this right, then whatever you build on it is not, it's on shaky grounds and it's going to collapse. I mean, how many times we say that a devotee is a servant of a servant of a servant. You always, and you're always a dasa. What's interesting in India, to call yourself a dasa is to tell everyone I'm a shudra. And in a very in a society that's rooted for God knows how many centuries in the concept of inequality. To be called a shudra is not a good thing. Of course, inequality does exist, but inequality exists only on the material plane. On the spiritual plane, there is equality. We're all within the same category of Jiva Tattva. And the next inequality is Shakti Tattva, which is another category of consciousness. And then there's the supreme category of consciousness, which is the supreme consciousness, God and God's incarnations. But within all this material inequality, we tend to identify with the duty false ego and then forget about the eternal spiritual equality. Hare Krishna. And so in this way also goes against bhakti. There's no bhakti without this foundation. No feeling. As I hope we'll get to read a quote by Srila Prabhupada about the feeling. There's no feeling, genuine feeling without this. And so for these reasons, it is an objective evil. Now, whether one ends up in the hell, I don't know. And then it is also a question of how far down this road of disrespect one will go. If one goes down this road long enough, or deep enough, or down enough, yes, one will end up in hell. And so this brings us to punishment, because we see Daksha has been punished. And not only Daksha, but a lot of people have been punished. This is a very difficult subject matter, punishment. I just read a public conversation where a father slapped his daughter, gave her a slap, and she called the police on him, and she was really behaving, or we would say misbehaving. And so, the father just snapped in and gave her a little slap. Ended up in jail and then in court, and he had to pay a fine, and then continue to live with his daughter. It's a very uncomfortable situation. Zeitgeist, what's the German word, Zeitgeist? Yeah, that is the German word, I know, but I'm wondering about my pronunciation. Pretty good. I heard it many times. The spirit of the time, or something like that. Not sure how is it precisely translated. And what's interesting, that people of each time are convinced that the spirit of their time is the spirit. So that the things of their time are the things. But yeah, I grew up in a time where my mother slapped me God knows how many times. It's just a perfectly normal thing. It wasn't normal to abuse a child, but a little slap on a cheek or on the backside. You're from India. Did you ever get spanked?
Mom, yes.
By mom, yeah. By father, no. No, okay. Moms are more dangerous. In my case, too. I'm not here to say that modern times are wrong, or that the past times are wrong. I'm just here to put things in perspective, so we don't become narrow-minded about the matter. But the punishment, you see, humans are yet to come up with a system of education that is not based in the system of reward and punishment. We're yet to come up with the system of education. So in school, if you give wrong answers, you get punished by being given bad grades or lower grades. And if you give good answers, you are given good grades. Same thing for behavior. Every government rewards and punishes behavior according to their concept, what is wanted behavior and what is unwanted behavior. And then if the behavior is really, really unwanted, then you're being really, really punished. So throughout history, punishments ranged from severe physical punishments, even mental punishments, such as ostracizing. You know what ostracizing is? Yeah, when you're ostracized by a group of people, or in the Christian tradition, they call that shunning. To shun someone means like, person is a member of your community and you didn't excommunicate the person. The person is still within a community, but the person is made to wear a hat, which indicates that the person has done something that everyone does not appreciate. And then no one talks to that person. The person is supposed to wear that all the time. Like he slept with another man's wife. She's poisoned the child, or and then he or she has to wear a hat or a symbol on a badge or tar and feathers. You know what tar and feathers is? Do you know what that is? Oh, you guys really don't know tar and feathers. That's like it's one of the craziest forms of punishment. What's a tar? It's a oil derivative. So it's very sticky. So like asphalt is made out of it. And so they pour that all over you, and it's super sticky, and then they pour feathers all over you. And so feathers stick to it, and you can't wash it for months. And you walk around tarred and feathered, and then everyone knows you must have done something horrible. Then wherever you go, people are like, whoa. So in modern times, there are no such forms of punishment. But still, the system is in principle the same, but the details vary. But the system is the same. So hell is yet another educational system, believe it or not. Because when a person does something evil, a person does not understand they have done evil. Like sociopaths and psychopaths are people who don't understand what they're doing. When a psychopath or sociopath abuses you, to them that's just a game of numbers. Like 2 + 2 = 4. There's no feeling, there's no emotion. They're completely removed from it. And so they need to be punished in order to be able to associate the pain with their activity. Why? So they can understand what the person whom they hurt is feeling. Because they're incapable to feel that. Which is, by the way, definition in Bhagavad Gita of the best of yogis. Who is the best of yogis? Atmopamyena sarvatra. One who is able to understand what others are understanding. One who is able to feel what others are feeling. Sorry. One who experiences what others are experiencing. So, if you don't like the cold, sharp steel penetrating your body, why should you do it to a pig? You can do that only because you have disassociated yourself with the thing that the pig is experiencing. But the moment you're conscious of what the pig is experiencing, you cannot do it. And so punishment is a form of education. And when people are really, really stupid, like really, really spiritually and morally corrupt, then a verbal education just doesn't cut it. There's the requirement of extreme forms of education. Do you know what the school of hard knocks is? Yeah, did you all hear that? Yeah. That's what they call life. It's a school of hard knocks. Like you go through life and you just beat. You're beaten here, beaten there. Not necessarily physically, but you suffer. And through that suffering, you're asking yourself, what am I doing wrong? And you learn. So hell is an extreme form of education for those who just cannot learn the other way. And trust me, there's so many people who cannot learn the other way. This is very unfortunate. I mean, I remember in San Diego selling a book to a fellow. And I didn't initiate the conversation, he did, about eating animals. And he was like, yeah, I like it. And that was it. That was the end of discussion. No matter what I said. At the end he concluded, but I like it. And I said, what if I like to punch you in the face? Does that give me the right to do that? Is that a... No, it's just like, but there are animals. Oh, for God's sake, are you stupid? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? You know, you're a conscious being, that's a conscious being. You experience pain, animals are experiencing pain. Like, hello, anybody home? No. Because this is what happens when you're not a truth seeker. You really go down deep into the abyss of ignorance. And then depending what kind of ignorance you've been pursuing, you become really good at certain departments of ignorance. Very advanced. Morally looking at it, like from the point of moral reasoning, when you educate by pain, if you're a healthy person, you will use only the minimal necessary amount of pain. So it's got to be minimal and necessary. If it's not necessary, you're evil. And if it's not minimal, again you're evil. Parents, I mean, what parent would want to excessively punish a child? Only someone who's sick. Oh man, this is a huge subject. I guess this can stay for tomorrow. Because you see, if you excessively punish and if you unnecessarily punish, then you might be just vengeful. You know what's vengeful? Yeah, you're avenging vengeance. Your feelings have been hurt or something, and now you're like taking it out on the person. And such people are even more at wrong than the person who actually did them wrong. So this is a great responsibility when we ourselves react to an evil, that we react appropriately. So when we are responding to evil, if we have been the object of some evil, we have to be careful how we respond. Because if we're responding just vengefully, then we're wrong. And we might be more wrong than the person who's committed the evil to us. I just remembered a friend of mine, a devotee. His neighbor did something to him and he lost it. And I'm not going to say what it is, it's really embarrassing. But he was screaming and yelling and breaking things and threatening and pulling and pushing and throwing things. And then I told him, man, you're worse than him. Like way worse. And then he sort of sobered up, like, yeah, I mean, people do it so often. Again, because they're not truth seekers, so they don't care about the truth. So vain vengefulness, you know what's that? Vain, empty. You know, vain means empty on false ego, like vanity. Vain vengefulness is irresponsible and therefore it is evil. And I very carefully constructed this sentence. Irresponsibility is evil. Like just by existing we're responsible. Why? Because we coexist. Everything we do has influence on someone, something. So just by being alive, we're responsible. I mean, look at Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada had people join him in an effort of Krishna consciousness. And then he would push him really hard to do things. And they would try to do these things. And sometimes they would do these things badly. And Prabhupada would chastise them. And at first, I was thinking, wow, how's that fair? You make me do things, you push me to do things, and I do my best and I don't do it right. And you yell at me. How's that fair? It is fair in the sense that life is also fair like that. And we have found, this is a very profound, very important claim of Krishna consciousness, that if we were not so dedicated to the life of lying, we would know. We would know, and therefore ignorance is not an excuse. Life is sort of like traffic. When you participate on the highway, you have to be alert at all times as to what you do. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to drive anymore, or I'm going to drive 10 kilometers an hour on a highway. Someone's going to come from behind all of a sudden and smash into you. As a matter of fact, lots of highways have bottom limitations, like you have to drive over a certain speed, and you have to drive below a certain speed. And if you want to go slow, then you go to the far right lane. If you want to drive faster, you go to the far left lane. There are rules. And if you join the traffic and your senses are impaired, you know what it means to have senses impaired. That means that the ability of your senses is compromised. Your ability to see, ability to hear, ability to respond, because you might have been drinking, or because you might have taken narcotics, or maybe because you're tired. It is all driving under influence. In every case, your sensual ability is impaired. Or compromised, if you don't know this word, impaired. So life is like that. Like my sister had a baby. There's a baby. So what do? You have to do. You can't just you have to do, and you don't know always what to do. She was telling me about it. First baby, I was like freaking out, Being a friend. Where's that school that teaches you how to be a friend? It's called life, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But that's how life is. So we cannot be irresponsible at any time, and at all times we ought to be inquisitive. And then what's interesting, and I think this is quite obvious in the modern society, especially, certain things Prabhupada wrote are just uncomfortable for modern people to read in terms of punishment. In terms of punishment. See, if you don't punish, if there is no punishment, or if you let the people who ought to be punished slide easily, then people in general are going to easily commit sin. So punishment is also a way of communicating not only to the person who's committed the act, but also to the rest of the society. What I'm about to say, I don't know whether it's illegal. Maybe I'll get in trouble. But the modern society, in my opinion, especially if you compare it to some other societies or Vedic tradition and so on, the way judicial system works, it's often way too mild. And then people know they can manipulate the judicial system. And then they just do it. Do you know how many court cases have big pharmaceutical companies lost and they knew they were going to lose them? Like they would make a product, and I'm not talking about coronavirus, even though God knows may be true about that too. But previous times, you can look it up, it's all online. They would make a product and they would know that there are terrible side effects. And I'm not saying side effect like I had an itch, but like your liver fails, you die. Or women lose the reproductive ability. Men lose reproductive ability. Different forms of invalidity where you become an invalid. I mean, all kinds of horrible stories, and they sell it anyways. Why? Because they have done the math. By the time we pay all of the fines, we will have still profited. So it's okay. I mean, it's all online. You can look it up. Like, documented court cases and so on. And so these are criminal acts. One thing is when you make a mistake. That's like, there will be a misdemeanor, let's say. But this is criminal, where you have willingly harmed other people. Pharmaceutical companies just have a history of this kind of behavior. Car mechanics. There's a joke. A woman came to a mechanic and she said her car broke down, and the guy looked at it and said the alternator broke down, and she said, "What is that?" And he said, both. You don't know. There's only one alternator. There's no vehicle has two alternators. There's just one in every. But he said two. As soon as she asked, "What is it?" and he said, two. Prabhupada mentioned these stories, like if you stole, a king would cut off your hand. And then people freak out, modern people freak out. But why did you steal? Who told you to steal? Why? Why we have trivialized stealing? So anyone steals, because you're not going to get anything for it. Of course, the other problem with punishment is that what if you punish an innocent person? That's a huge problem. Huge problem. But I'm not getting into it right now. I'm just speaking of. Again, I'm not here to want to change the modern world, but I'm here to meditate on the words in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam on the topic of hell and punishment. Because from the modern perspective, what Lord Shiva did here would be considered very intense. I mean, he left most of the demigods invalids for life. Like he said, those of you who have lost your arms, for your arm needs, you're going to use arms of those people. I mean, they're super dependent now on those people, but those of you who have lost your teeth, you will eat through the mouth of that person. And if he doesn't want to eat, he says, then you will have to chew on something tasteless. And that's something they're going to have to live with for the rest of their lives. And they have all accepted it. They have all accepted it. Just like Daksha. For God's sake, Daksha was left with the goat's head. That's a severe punishment from the modern point of view. Or probably from every point of view. But we live in different times where, like if you steal, that's nothing. It's known. To have a good mechanic is not to have a good mechanic, it's to have a mechanic that's not going to tell you there are 2 alternators in your vehicle. That's the device that charges up the battery as it runs. I don't know. There's one. And what's very interesting here is that they, including Daksha, they have all accepted their punishments. This is the symptom of a person who has reformed. Why is it important to say sorry after you have done something inappropriate? Because if you're truly sorry, means you have been reformed. So they have been reformed. They understand what they have done, and therefore they have accepted their punishments. As a matter of fact, this is stated to be a quality of great devotees, that they're able to accept their destiny as the will of God. I don't know how, or maybe I do know, but whether I know it or not, I am accepting the destiny because I deserve it. Bhagavatam says, and Prabhupada says this many times, that only great devotees can think and feel like this. And there's a good example in Phaedo. I don't know if anyone read Phaedo by Socrates or Plato, depends whichever way you want to put it. Plato wrote through the mouth of Socrates, and the book is called Phaedo, and sometimes it's also called On the Soul, because in it Socrates, or Plato through the mouth of Socrates, speaks about the soul. The Socrates is about to be executed by the city of Athens, and he's being, and so he's sitting in jail and he's waiting to be executed, and he doesn't know when will he be executed. Could be tomorrow, could be today, could be in 2 months, 2 years. They're waiting for some ships to return from the sea. This was pre-cell phone days, so they didn't know when will they return, And he's very happily, completely content and calm, sitting in his prison cell. Even his closest associates were mesmerized. How in the world are you able to be so calm? And Socrates said, that's because I'm not the body, I'm the soul. And the soul is in the body as a form of punishment, which is exactly what Prabhupada said. This world is a correctional institution, is a prison, and we're within this. Prabhupada says if you have this body, that's like having a prisoner suit, but previously used to be with stripes and a ball and chain. And Socrates says, if they want to release me from this prison, I can hardly wait. And then Socrates himself poses a question. Well, then you may ask, why don't I just kill myself and release myself from prison? And he says, no, because I've been put in this body, in this jail, as a form of punishment. Only those who have truly reformed are the ones who have accepted the punishment. And I'm not going to do it, but if they're going to do it, I'll take that as God's plan to release me from this sentence. Yeah, I'm very happy. I can hardly wait. And then Phaedo, the person who was sitting with Socrates, he asked the question, well, what if you're wrong? What if you're not the soul? What if soul doesn't exist? And then Plato gives his reasons as to why he thinks that the person is soul rather than the body or something else. That's why the book is called On the Soul, but eventually it was given that name. And then I'll read just one more thing and then we are over. Where was that? Prabhupada in the purport somewhere says, as usual, a devotee in an adverse condition of life accepts such a condition to be the mercy of the Lord. Adverse conditions, devotee accepts as special mercy of the Lord. And if you have tried to do this, you may have realized it's not easy to be an advanced devotee. Because when you find yourself in difficult situation, you typically ask, God, why me? Why in the world did I get this? And I'll quote, to illustrate this, I'll quote another statement by Srila Prabhupada from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, where the verse says, this is Narada Muni speaking about himself, his childhood, how his mother died. He was just a little boy, he had no one in this world except a mother, who I think washed other people's laundry to maintain them alive. Like no one else cared whether Narada Muni lived or died, suffered or was happy, except this one person. This one person, his mother, dies. And Narada Muni says, I took this as the special mercy of the Lord. Of the Lord who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking I started for the north. Do you know what it means to start for the north? Yes, means the life of renunciation. Like he just gave up. Okay, this is it. The special mercy of the Lord. It's an opportunity. The curtain of illusion is opening. Let's run. And it took to the life of renunciation. In the purport, it's all kinds of things written, but I've taken out just one thing. Prabhupada says, confidential devotees of the Lord, so not all devotees, just like advanced devotees, they always see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people do not understand it. Only devotees do. So, Om Tat Sat. Any questions or comments, perhaps? Okay, it was Munigana Prabhu, and then Prabhuji, and then our Pujari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I would like to ask you, it sounds maybe a little bizarre, but I don't like to take it in this heavy way, but also in our communities, there are also many devotees, different levels, and we are doing also things wrong. We are doing mistakes.
We're
We are doing mistakes.
doing things
in the
wrong,
past.
making mistakes, okay.
Actually, there's also like an authority system, and we should follow.
There is what kind of system? Authority.
Authority system, and we should also follow different things.
Okay.
But on the other side, what to say? We are. This is freiwillig. We are voluntary in the, like for the temples, whatever we're doing service. And you talked about punishment and how far we could use it, or what would be a normal. I mean, we are not beating up somebody or whatever, but which systems of punishment?
In some societies they do.
Yes, we hear the example.
In Germany you can't do that even if you wanted to.
But what would you say?
So don't beat anyone.
What would be a normal where we can do progress and would be a normal amount of so-called punishment?
Well, we have to understand that, you see, in order to exert punishment, you have to be some sort of, if you exert punishment, you're putting yourself in the position of a representative of God. So you have to be, it's not that anyone can exert punishment. That's why it is a great risk to be in the position of an authority. It is a great risk to be a father, mother, temple president, GBC, guru, for God's sake. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have heard devotees tell me what their gurus told them to do, and I thought, I would never tell that to you. But I don't know who's right, the guru or me. But again, it just goes to show, like in my mind I'm thinking, wow, I would never say that. That's like too far. That's a huge responsibility. So also in a community whose responsibility, whose service is to punish? That's a good question, And in modern societies, and here Srila Prabhupada seems very interesting to me, In modern societies, this balance of power tends to be dissipated. So that the power doesn't lay in the hands of just one person or a small group, but it's rather dissipated, so that the different points of authority balance each other. Just like I said, when I heard what that guru advised his disciple to do, and I was thinking, wow, I would never do that. So, like in ISKCON, we have lots of gurus, and a god brother of mine asked our guru in a public lecture, he said, you're a guru, and this other person's a guru. You say A, he says B. You're both gurus. What should I do? And I'm your disciple. How should I understand this? You're both supposed to be representatives of God. Yeah, that's a common occurrence. That's why, it's interesting, like Prabhupada didn't set up ISKCON in such a way that there is one point of authority, but rather it dissipated that point of authority by creating a whole body of people. So, try to minimize the possibility of error. Very interesting. It's all over Prabhupada's books, monarchy. But monarchs also in these days, they would always have advisors, and they would undergo training that modern people just don't do. All of these monarchs, at the end of their political term, they go into exile to forests to live as ascetics with no possessions, like that. So You see, there are two things here. One thing is a spiritual reality, and us, and we're trying to live in that spiritual reality. And so, in this way, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we structure the system of authority where something so sensitive as punishment is going to be administered? Are we truly in the divine domain, or we're just trying to copy it and we make a lot of mistakes? We're obviously making a lot of mistakes. And so each community tries to organize itself in a particular fashion. I mean, when I was put in the position of a temple president, I freaked out. How do you translate that? Yeah. Yeah, I was out of my mind. I was like, man, this is scary, And I quickly went to my GBC and I said, we need to have a board. You know what a board is? It's a group of devotees who govern the temple, not me. It's like, so if anything goes wrong, I'll just point in that direction. Wasn't me. Yeah, I mean, unless you're sick, many people are sick, many people are really intoxicated by pride. They can hardly wait to sit in the position of authority. But that's such a responsibility. I mean, you can mess up somebody's life. Do you know what that means? Or you don't care. Maybe you're a psychopath who is incapable of feeling what other people are feeling. Yeah, it's interesting how Prabhupada organized that. Anyhow, so every community organizes itself in some way. So you can participate or not participate in that community, or you can try to change it. As a matter of fact, that's what I did when I came down to San Diego. I liked the place. I saw a lot of prospect there, but I thought it was really bad. It was badly organized, really bad standards. I don't know if Balaram remembers, you just started to come maybe. It was not good, but I thought, I'll change it. I'm not going to leave it. I'm not going to live like that, that's for sure. I'll change it. And by Krishna's grace, I managed to change it in appropriate ways. That's also not in inappropriate ways, but appropriate ways. And first thing was, by Krishna's grace, I was able to attract a good number of young men. I was a brahmachari. Balaram Prabhu was one of my first to join. And Ananda Dev, who said, I would join but I have cats. And then he came 3 days later and says, my cats died. And I said, I didn't do it. I swear I didn't do it. And that's it. He quit his job, sold everything he had, and moved into a temple. Ananta Dev. He's still brahmachari, almost 30 years later. What is that? It was early 2000, so 20 years. 20 years later. So first, created, managed to attract a lot of young men, and then, my opinion and things I would do were bearing some weight, And then, if I suggested something, then the community would think about it seriously. And then eventually we also had to have some people leave. They really didn't belong to the temple. We weren't brutish about it. You know what it means to be brutish? Yeah. Brutish is, yeah, you're being like brutal, but brutish means like unsophisticated, gross, in some ways brutal. So you can change the community like that also. Or start a new one. In ISKCON you can do that too. Oh, is that okay? Okay, and who was next to you, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for this nice lecture, enlivening. The question is, if you look at the Manu Samhita, it said it's part of Vedas, so it's eternal knowledge and ever applicable.
Prabhupada even repeated that to Professor Kotovsky, if you remember, in Moscow.
Yeah. So, as you said, in nowadays structure, everybody would condemn such a punishment. So, but still, would that punishment be relevant in this society, or would you say that actually our society has developed in such a way that...
When you say our society, what society are you thinking of? ISKCON or the world?
Worldwide,
okay.
Yeah. Or has the world society become so aware and knowledgeable actually that we could say they have not such harsh punishment is anymore necessary?
I wouldn't say that ever. Yeah, I think people are as primitive as ever. You know, it's really bizarre to me to see how people think that Hitler and Stalin happened because people back then were primitive. But look what happened during the Corona thing. I mean, for God's sake, like some people and some governments behaved like Hitler and Stalin. It was just remarkable, you know. I mean, they were 2 inches away from it. I mean, had it gone on a bit, there'd be wars and all kinds of things, you know. So, yeah, I don't think that people have somehow or other spiritually ascended as a collective. Yes, those forms of punishments would work. But the implementation, you see, you cannot disregard the greater reality within which you find yourself. You see, you always have to integrate. We're part of this reality, and for us to function within this reality, every change is a journey of gradual steps. Even most of us are well defined by the times that we have been born and brought up in. I could give you so many examples of this. Like my Indian godbrothers and myself. When the Guru something sells, I notice how these Indian brahmacharis, they just don't think, they just do it. And to me, everything has to make sense. It's like a very, very independent southern Croatia type of a fellow. If you know people from down south, they're all like that. During the coronavirus thing, like no one could close the stores because police couldn't do it because people are so independent. You're gonna have war, man. So it's a question of appropriate integration. It's a journey of gradual steps. But I would also argue that that not necessarily all details are eternal. The principles are eternal, but the details may vary, you know. Just look at the ability of, for example, generation of our grandparents. There was no divorce. Like people wouldn't divorce. It was like almost non-existent. Whereas nowadays people, including devotees, have a hard time not divorcing. because we're a product of the world we live in, our emotional expectations are different, which means you're going to break the person, You could be insisting on the person never divorcing, but then you break the person. And someone may be upset with me for saying this, but so, there are certain things which are just, in terms of details, don't fit the times. Even what we look what we look for in our partners is right from the beginning way different. Our ability to withstand tapasya is different. We're used to people throughout history have never enjoyed so much comfort. Even the smallest of apartments is way more comfortable than a middle-aged castle. Like I would never live in a 1500s castle. I would rather live in the smallest of apartments. It's way more comfortable, So that also has a huge. Then technology. So I'm not here to say what exactly should be done. I'm a philosopher. I pull myself away from him. But in terms of principles, there's a need for some kind of integration.
And to the other point that you said is about authority and having it distributed so that we have a board or in general, just the concept of it, isn't it that also we take the opportunity away from anybody becoming empowered or having the vision and the ability to lead and to elevate people? If we distribute it all over and there's so many authorities, it becomes like a forest for the sincere practitioners so that they don't know where to go?
Well, you have given an extreme example. For example, the way Srila Prabhupada dissipated authority is not that extreme. Like Prabhupada didn't make an anarchy to where every individual is the authority. That's anarchy, Like I decide for my own destiny and whatnot. No, it's still small group of people, but it's not one person. It's not monarchy. Mono means one. Monarchy, rule of one. But rather you have boards, you have people's representatives, you have GBC, they get together and then they fight among themselves. And then whatever happens after they fought is the decision imposed upon the large body of ISKCON, which then, interestingly enough, depending what kind of resolution it is, like some communities may or may not accept them. And then you have communities rebelling against decisions of GBC, and then, so how good is this? I don't know, but Prabhupada obviously felt a need to dissipate authority, to not totally dissipate it, but just like spread it a bit so it's not concentrated only in one person.
Yeah, you also said if you dissipate, then you also dissipate the fault tolerance, but you other way also around.
You dissipate
the fault tolerance, so that means
fault
tolerance. There's less opportunity to make a mistake.
Fault tolerance. Yeah.
But if you turn it around, you could also say that you increase the possibility that faults are being created, and together you make some very wrong adjustment.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I agree with you. Whichever way you go, you find problems. And one thing what people don't realize, that even the Vedic system is, as one devotee put it, is a damage management system. It's not like you have this system and there's no more damage in the world. No, you're just like trying to minimize damage. Prabhupada also said that this world is a bad bargain. And life in this world is a bad bargain. You're just trying to make the best out of a bad bargain. So He's just checking out which bargain is not as bad. But it's interesting to see how Prabhupada, supported one, but then practically, he dissipated that. Okay, should we end? And I saw well, here's what I'm going to do, because it's really late. I'll end the class here, and if anyone wants to chit-chat, I'll be here for a few more minutes. Is that okay? Okay. All right. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Could you give him his cell phone? It's still, the light is still on. This is the body who's translating.
Yeah, I just was thinking, I think the concept of punishment is divine, because Mother Yashoda, but nowadays would be in big trouble.
Oh, she'd be in huge trouble.
Yeah,
She would have a court case over her.
Yeah.